So here's my 2003 Mercedes S55 AMG. Ever since I had this car, it's always had a issue with the gearbox, with the torque converter shutter. When you're going uphill under certain conditions it shutters, and then if you try accelerating hard, especially if it's in manual mode, in second and third gear it feels like it's slipping. It's actually not the gearbox, it's the torque converter. So it also has the P2300 code, which is a communication problem because the 7-pin connector plug is leaking into the wiring harness, which is leaking into the TCM, causing part of these issues. But since this car has 185,000 miles, part of these issues could be caused by the 7-pin connector plug leaking, as well as by the valves inside the valve body. So I'm going to remove the valve body, change the conductor plate, even though that is still good, because they fail, and when it fails sometimes the car goes into limp mode, you know how like third gear, or if some of the other sensors fail you have no gears at all. So change the conductor plate, as well as the 7-pin connector plug, and put in the Sonnax overlap kit and transgo shift kit, and maybe some other things as well. See when I take the valve body out and have a look at it. If your car is having these problems and you don't want to go into the gearbox right away, you might try changing the 7-pin connector plug and cleaning it really well. And you can take the TCM apart. Sometimes they're full of oil. Mine isn't, but that can happen, which causes lots of issues. So you can try that first if you don't want to take the gearbox apart, and could help. But I'm just going to go ahead and do everything. I got the car lifted up on solid blocks of wood. That's what the underneath looks like. That plastic cover right there will have to come off, and the oil pan for the gearbox is right there. You can see the drain plug. Also, it's very important on these cars with ABC suspension or automatic, is even if the car is lifted like this, all the weight is resting on the wheels. If you're going to be under it, place jack stands somewhere where the suspension doesn't move, because if in the rare event something goes wrong with the hydraulics, the car will collapse and come down on top of you. I got the gearbox draining. The drain plug was quite difficult to remove. It was quite over tightened and slightly stripped, so I had to hammer in the Allen drive to get it out, but managed to get it out. And as well, before removing the pan, there's a bracket right here that holds on the wires for the secondary O2 sensors. There's a Torx bolt for it right here, and one just right here. That has to be removed so the gearbox pan can come off. As well as when removing it, there's these aluminum tabs with the bolts to them that hold it on. Very important to keep those in order because they are slightly different. Let that finish draining, and then I'll remove the pan. Here is the 7-pin connector removed. That's where it goes in. Also, to get the wire out, right there's the plug on it. There's a bracket right there that holds the wire to the side of the gearbox. Pop the wire out from that. It gives it more room. This is what the 7-pin connector looks like. There's a 7mm screw in the middle. This is positioned like so in there, and then the wiring harness plugs in right here. To get it out, you just turn this to the, show you. So it was like this, and the wiring harness plugs in right here. To get it out, just turn this tab like so, and then it unplugs, and then just the 7mm screw right there. And now I'll take off the oil pan. Here's the gearbox oil pan. There's a filter right there. The fluids, I mean, it's not too terribly bad, but it's quite dirty. I was told this car had its fluid changed right before I bought it, so technically this fluid only has around 5,000 or 6,000 miles, but mind you, when you drain it, if you just drain it from the pan and refill it, you only get about 3.5 to 4 liters out, because there's still a lot of fluid remaining in the lines for the oil cooler as well as the gearbox itself and the torque converter, so you only get about half of it out. But we'll see, it's still quite clear, so it's not that bad. Very little metallic flakes, which is normal because the clutches inside the gearbox do wear a little bit. Here's the magnet. You can tell it was changed at one point not too long ago, because the filter spilled the fluid, but it's still in really rather clean, good condition. Also, the fluid in the 722.6 gearbox, it can range in color from red, like greenish, brownish, light yellow, depending on the age of it and the brand. As you can tell, this one's like a greenish, brownish color, which is perfectly normal. It doesn't smell burnt or anything. Another important thing about these Mercedes cars is they had the Vallejo radiators in them, which have a built-in cooler for the gearbox that was known to fail, and then when you shut the car off, that pressurized coolant goes into the fluid, and then the fluid looks like kind of like a pink milkshake color. It's very important. If you have that fluid color, fix it immediately, because it will destroy the gearbox. What happens is the glycol from the coolant seeps into the clutches, especially the torque converter, lock up clutches, and then the friction of them is modified because they're not getting the fluid, they're soaked in glycol. Then they shut out and they slip, and eventually they wear out. And if that happens, just flush the fluid really well. Depending on how long had the problem, you might have to replace the torque converter or even rebuild that gearbox. If you're worried that their fluid is contaminated with glycol, they do make a test strip kit that should pick up even 1 or 2% of glycol contamination in the fluid. So this is what you will see when you remove the oil pan. The filter goes in this hole right there. This goes in right here. I already removed it. It just pulls out. And then to remove the valve body, it's just all these torque screws everywhere, which I will show you a closer view of them when I remove it. It's very messy. It's dripping fluid everywhere. Here's what the valve body looks like removed from the gearbox. Now, first of all, remove the connector plate. To do this, take off the tips of these two caps. They just pop off, and underneath them you'll see the shift solenoids. Here's the conductor plate removed. Got all the solenoids out. The connector plate just on like so, and just pops off. To get a closer look at these solenoids, the silicone that looked a bit strange to me. You see, that looks quite factory upon closer inspection. Don't think someone did that. Probably put it on there to minimize the vibrations. And then just to remove all the Torx bolts in the valve body and split the valve body in half. If you are just doing the Sonnax overlap sleeves, you do not need to do that, but I'm doing also the Sonnax torque converter lock-up damper valve, which that comes with a C-clip that needs to be installed inside the valve body, so you have to split the valve body in half. So here's the valve body disassembled. This is the top half, which is the smaller one. Got all the valves removed. So looking at this side here, which is the shorter one, from top down, these are 4 valves. The first one is the 3/4 overlap, the second one is the 3/4 shift pressure, the third one down is the 3 to 4 command, and the very last one is the 3 and 4 holding pressure. This is the overlap sleeve that we'll be replacing. I don't know if it's showing up, the glare is quite bad, there's quite a bit of scuffing on it. On this side here, going top down, the big one, which is that one right there, is the main pressure regulating valve. That is the second one is the lubrication regulating valve, and that is the very last one is the 2 to 3 overlap regulating valve. I don't really know what it means, that's what it says in the instructions. And again, that is the overlap sleeve I'll be replacing. I'm putting in the transgo shift kit as well. The kit also comes with the overlap sleeves, but they do not have the O-rings like the Sonnax ones do. Those are perfectly fine to use, but I like the Sonnax ones because they have a O-ring on them, which makes them seal better. To put these in, you put the O-ring on them and roll it on a flat surface to make sure the O-ring is seated, and just lubricate everything with the new transmission fluid and reuse the internal valve that goes in. Also, I cleaned up the valve body really well. It was great clean and compressed air because it was quite dirty. Now onto the other side of the top half of the valve body. Now the transgo shift kit comes with the updated version of the pressure regulating valve, but there's two types of this valve. There's a smaller one, which is much more common, and a larger one. The AMG cars and all the high output cars have the bigger one. So the kit comes with a smaller one, so I'm just going to reuse the original one, and as well as the Sonnax overlap sleeves. If you're wondering which one goes which, just take it apart and fit the internal valve into the overlap sleeve. It'll only go in one way. If it fits perfectly, then it's the correct one. If it's too small or it's too big, then get the other sleeve, because there's 3 of them in the kit. Also, the transgo shift kit comes with a updated lubricator valve. This is what the original one looks like. This is the updated one. Metal sleeve, plunge jet within the sleeve, the orange spring, and another sleeve. Now for the bottom half of the valve body. This is the bigger half. Now before you do anything, you need to remove the 2 filter screens. There are also multiple rubber and steel check valve bolts. The steel check valve bolts, there's one there, right there, 2 right here, and 1 there. And that's all for the steel ones. Now for the rubber ones, there's the one right there, right there, right there. That's all for those, and there's also 2 filter screens, one right here and one right here, and also a plastic spring-loaded valve, or not really sure what that is, but make sure you do not lose that. So here's the Sonnax updated torque converter damper valve. You can see it's got a sleeve of seal rings. It's also held in with a C-clip and a small plunger valve for it in the spring. Here's the valve body. It goes in right here. Then you stick it all the way through. Right in there, that's where the C-clip goes. This is what the original one looks like, so you can tell it's quite different. So I finished putting the valve body back together, then film showing me installing the other overlap sleeve, because this has been taking close to 8 hours so far. So got the new conductor plate on if someone's interested where everything goes. You can pause the video. Here's the instructions showing where everything goes. The new overlap sleeve goes right there. So now just put the valve body back in the car and